My father recently told me to take a semester off from college and join him in the office. He thought it would help me grow and change if I started working alongside with him. He told me the way he saw me progressing, he didn't see a bright future. I agreed to his wishes. I didn't really enjoy going to college anyways. I didn't have any real friends, and the less I had to hang around in the crowds, the better I felt. The first day at the office, I didn't really do much. My father just made me pick up orders from various places. The office was located in the busiest part of the city, and although I hated crowds, I ended up going out of the office more than I actually wanted to. My father would send me to get supplies one time or a cup of coffee another time. I ended up getting to know the area very well. I usually don't immediately go back to the office. I sit out on the stairs to catch a breath before going off on another one of Father's tasks. Just opposite of the office building, there was a 3-story apartment building, and at the top right corner, there was a window that was always open. What caught my attention was the bright pink curtains that always blowed out in the wind. I often waited to see who lived there, but I never got a glimpse of the pink curtain person. One morning, my father told me we had a very important project to work on, so we would have to start early in the morning and work late till night for the next week or so. I wasn't too worried as I knew I really didn't need to do anything except for stand by my father for his petty little jobs. That morning, just as the sun was starting to hit the buildings, I heard the squeaking noise of one of the windows opening. Curious to see if it was the pink curtain one, I quickly turned my head. There was a girl who opened the window and drew her curtains. She stood there for a while and stared out, and I stood by the office door and stared at her. I was never really the type of guy that girls wanted to be with, so I never have been with anyone, or, more accurate to say would be none of my relationships actually lasted. Every girl I've ever been with complained that I never liked the things they liked, or I never went out with them, or talked to them. I never behaved the way usual guys do, like get them flowers and a box of chocolates on Valentine's. In short, I wasn't the ordinary guy. I wasn't normal. I'm kind of relieved those relationships didn't last. They weren't meant for me. So when I saw this pink curtain girl, I never imagined that this would be the one I'd spend the rest of my life with. The first time we actually spoke was right before I was heading back home from the office one day. It was evening, and I watched the girl walk out of her building and sit on the steps outside. She looked upset, and I think I even saw a few tears roll down her cheek. I told my father I'd come home later and I crossed over the road. I asked her, "Are you okay?" She looked at me for a while, rubbing the tears off her cheek. "I'm alright, thank you." She didn't want to talk to me at first. That's my father's office across the street. I've been working here for quite some time now. She only nodded her head and looked out onto the street. You know, it's not hard to tell that it's not alright. She repeated to me that everything was fine, and she got up and went back inside. But I could see that she felt better after I talked to her. The next time I saw her, she waved at me and smiled. We soon began talking, and I got to know who she really was. Her name was Felicity. She lived with her mother in that apartment, although they never actually spent that much time together. Her father had divorced her mother many years ago, and her mother had moved out with her and started living on her own. Her mother worked 2 jobs and rarely got any time at home, and when she did, she was never in a good mood. Felicity and her mother recently moved to this neighborhood, and she was finding it difficult to adjust to the people here. To be honest, Felicity and I came from 2 totally different backgrounds. I grew up with both my parents who owned their own home for as long as I can remember. They were always happy and joyful, and I never experienced any hardship growing up. As for Felicity, she grew up lonely with a single mother who was practically depressed, and she moved from place to place where she was unable to make any real friends. Over the days, we often crossed paths. We weren't what you call friends, but she told me what was going on in her life. She confided in me, and I sat there listening to her problems. I started to like her, but unfortunately she didn't really feel the same way about me. She was waiting for a handsome prince who would save her from her misery and gallop off into the vast distance. It was clear that I was definitely not her type. I hadn't told her how I felt, as I knew there was a high possibility she would just stop meeting me or talking to me. I decided to wait it out. Felicity told me how she and her mother would often argue. She told me she couldn't adjust at the college she entered either. No one talked to her, and she had a feeling there were some bad rumors going around about her. She overheard some of the students pointing out how she was an indecent girl, and she was looking out for a chance to bait one of the guys there. We would meet nearly every day, and I would listen to Felicity talk. Suddenly, Felicity stopped coming out of her apartment. She didn't open her windows and draw her curtains, as she usually did. I waited day after day, but I couldn't spot her outside. Finally, after about 2 weeks, I saw her step out. I left the office and walked across the street. "What happened to you?" She kept quiet for a while, and then told me, "All my nightmares are coming true." She decided to stop going to college. It was too difficult to bear with all the wild rumors that had spread about her. The last time she was there, she tried to get some papers from one of the male students, and he humiliated her in front of the whole class. She needed a break, maybe transfer to a new college, because she couldn't take the lies anymore. Felicity ended up transferring colleges, but the rumors had spread in the whole town, so it wasn't too different there either. I heard the rumors myself, but I knew how Felicity was. She barely stepped out of the house. There was no way the rumors could have been true. I noticed that what the others were saying about her had actually started to affect her. Her behavior began to change. And while all this was going on, her life at home grew even more worse. Her mother couldn't stand her, and I often heard their quarrels from out on the street. During this time, I didn't get to meet Felicity that often. I saw her car spray painted with graffiti all over. Horrible names and disgusting things were written about her. When I got a chance to talk to her again, I saw she had a bandage around her head. She told me weird things were happening to her. She was becoming afraid, and she even felt scared of going anywhere by herself now. She found despicable things stuffed into her mailbox, and just the other day, someone had thrown something at her window that caused it to shatter. She got the injury from the splintering glass. Felicity was becoming paranoid that someone was playing pranks on her, and one of these days it was going to get dangerous. As the rumors got worse, people started to keep their distance from Felicity. She eventually ended up taking some time off from college. She stayed locked up in her apartment and went for days without eating anything. She started to look pale and thin, as if there was nothing but bones on her body. One day, I met her mother who was going to work. When I asked her about Felicity, she told me she was worried about her. Her mother couldn't make her eat anything. She took to leaving food at her door. Felicity only came out of her room when she needed to go to the bathroom or in the middle of the night when her mother was asleep. Felicity started to live a miserable life. One of these days, I asked her mother if I could meet her. Her mother allowed me in and gave me some food to take it to Felicity. I stood by her door and called her. After a few hours of me standing there, she finally opened up and I got to see her after the longest time. She looked haggard and emaciated, and her hair looked like she never combed it. After that day, I went to see her every day, and I stood by her door and tried to convince her to take her food. She started talking to me through the door, and she told me what was going on in her life. She fought with her mother, her friends had abandoned her, someone had vandalized her car, she was receiving unspeakable things in the mail. She couldn't understand how someone could live with this kind of reputation. No companions, with everyone not wanting to even look at her. It was just like the old days again. She talked and I listened to her. Whenever she asked for my opinion, I would just give her an innocuous remark. As time went by like this, Felicity started to brighten up again. It looked like things were getting better. Her mother broke down into tears and thanked me profusely. Suddenly, one day I got a call from her mother. Felicity was in the hospital. She had gone driving and she got into an accident. When I went to meet her, the doctors told me that she had broken her leg and she wouldn't be able to walk for quite some time. I sat there next to her and she cried and told me she was sorry for all the trouble she caused me. I tried to soothe her and make her stop crying. She was so upset and hopeless, she didn't even bother to wipe her tears. I wiped her tears for her and asked her to marry me. She said, "Are you serious? Me?" She wouldn't believe me. I had to propose to her a number of times before she believed I really meant it. She cried as she accepted my proposal, and I reassured her that I wanted to marry her because I had always loved her. I loved her even when she ignored me at first, even when I had to listen to her stupid problems, even when I spread the rumors about her at her college, even when I spray painted graffiti on her car, even when I put despicable things in her mail, even when I broke her apartment window, even when all her friends abandoned her and she was left lonely, even when she stopped eating and became so thin and hid in her room, even when I made her car crash, and even now when she's laying on her hospital bed, unable to walk. Even now, I love her. She's the only girl who ever said yes to me. She was the one made for me.